Hi. So today what I would suggest you just watch very with carefully how I am going to fill up, how I am going to merge the colors, how the shadings are going to get together and things like that. So when you observe them and as I'm doing, obviously there'll be places where I'm making mistakes and I'll be correcting them, and even if, say suppose, because I've gotten 2 times of practice on the same image, if I'm not making as much mistakes, I will maybe make some and then tell you when you actually do that how you can rectify them. Because yeah, to talk about the wafer paper technique, that we just cracked it in the FOD 8, the present ongoing batch. Earlier times, now this has evolved with me from batch 1, which is like 4 years back. I've been doing this palette knife and pointillism with my students. The earlier technique of transferring the image onto the cake was a little complicated and people had trouble, and not many were able to execute complex images. So people were scared that if they should have the portrait painting knowledge, and why shouldn't people without the knowledge of painting them not be able to work on the cake? So this technique seemed really very apt. So it is easier for me to break down into multiple stages in which you can prepare. All the steps that you've done earlier is what my students from the long-term course do. So I wanted you guys to have the exact similar experience. So that is what I've made you do. Now the stage we are now is to actually work on the buttercream. So I already have worked on the cake board that I've done yesterday, which you guys also have to do. I have used wafer paper on the board, but obviously if you think of wafer paper being wasted on the board, which you may not be able to cut and eat, I mean, it's not for edible purpose, right, when you're working on the board. But it is very essential to understand how the wafer paper will behave with buttercream. So I prefer and suggest you to work on the cake board of the same size as what the image you've made, and work on the cake board once, and you can take approval from me, and any corrections you see, you can work on the cake if you prefer, or you can do one more trial on the cake board again. So your second time always is much better. But if you have doubts, like say suppose I have an order, say suppose I am just doing for a collab or a competition, should I do these many times? It depends on how complex an image you're going to choose. Now if I am going to do a similar portrait of a different face, then I may not need this much time for practice. Similarly for you, whatever level of complexity you have chosen, you should be able to do different kinds of the same pattern that you've chosen, but you don't need so much of practice, because now you understood all the mistakes that you have done now, so you will not be making the same mistake in the future. Say suppose you haven't chosen human face but maybe an animal face now, and say you're moving on to a human face as the next level where the shading is like very intricate. It won't consume as much time as it is going to consume for you during your first trial, but going forward the speed will definitely decrease and you're going to do faster once you've understood the technique. Okay, so I just check doubts you can maybe ask as I am working also. I'll ask Gayatri to read it out to me, and then I will answer as I am working also. So the first half will be, I'm going to work on the eyes, anything below the eyes, and then the forehead of the painting, and that I'm going to show you how to smooth out. So we are going to use piping bags. So all the buttercream that I have made earlier, I've loaded them in the boxes, right, what you've seen in the video. Now I've smoothened them out, I've put them in the piping bags just to save the time. The consistency was exactly like how it was in the bowl, but obviously if it goes into the fridge, when you take it out, you need to allow them to thaw for like say 3-4 hours, and then smooth it out with a spoon, and if they are still very dry, 1 or 2 drops of water and smooth consistency, and that goes into the piping bag. every piping bag I just snipped the tip of the piping bag and I have them just to save the time. So you will also be just cutting the tip not too thick, because we all have chosen images that are very intricate, right? So you don't want to have a very thick line just in case you need them for the outline or the borders. So very tiny hole you need to snip the piping bags. And I'm going to start working on the cake, where I will place the wafer paper on the cake. So the cake is there on the table, which I will be showing once I turn the camera. It's crumb coated, and the top is having a good amount of buttercream. Today morning, you can do it the previous day or the same day, but then if the buttercream is crusted, what we are using is crusting buttercream, right? If it is crusted, then the wafer paper, for it to stick, you need water. So I have a sprayer bottle with me, so I'm going to spray water on top of the cake and then place the wafer paper. So the wafer paper tracing is done on an A4 sheet, right? So I have also cut it down to a circle shape, I mean with an outline, and that I will place it on the cake, and that wafer paper is going to remain with the cake, and that is why we are using wafer paper, and then it is going to absorb the moisture and then it is going to soften up. But for a cake like this, which uses a crusting buttercream, once the moisture is gone, the wafer paper is going to not remain soft for quite a long period of time. But why am I using American buttercream is because we are going to practice, all of you, and so it is an easier medium because it hardens up, crusts after some time, and you can revive it back by just adding water. But if you are using other mediums like whipped cream or ganache or the meringue type of buttercreams, then it is a little difficult, because first you need to understand that medium. But American buttercream, for a learning purpose, is always very easy. So once you learn the technique using this American buttercream, then you can use the same thing. But if you are having trouble with the wafer paper remaining there and not remaining soft for a longer period of time, then the same thing you can do with meringue buttercreams, where the wafer paper will be just soft inside, and it is not going to be a trouble when you're going to cut the cake. Okay, so the rest of the doubts, what you have with what I have spoken now, or whatever you get as I'm working, you can ask in between, because it is easier, so you don't have to wait till the end. So questions Gayatri will read out as I said, and I can answer. Later at the end, I will have a question answer session here, where you can again type it out, and then I will answer at the end of the session. Okay, so let's hope that we finish the whole thing within the stipulated time, and I have enough time to answer the questions as well. Okay, so now let me just turn the camera and we just start working. I'll start showing what I have on the table. Okay, so this is the the trial that I made. So that's a board. There's an excess wafer paper that's hanging. So it's the board basically. I've just placed it on another board. The buttercream, I'd covered the board with buttercream first, a good layer, and then I placed the wafer paper. Whatever I'm going to do on top of this cake will be the same that I did to the board, right? So let's start doing. What I have here is the color printout of the same image. Okay, and that's the wafer paper and the tracing. So one change I had made after doing the lesson. Okay, so you can see that this is a different image, right? Because I used the previous one for some of my other trials. Okay, so the change that I've made here is the actual parts, right? The defined parts, they are the eyebrows, and then the eyes, the nose, lips, and then the fingers. What happened where the fingers have a lot of different shades? When we started applying, then I had difficulty in figuring out where are the fingers actually, because there are too many colors that are coming and then blending together. So if you have your traced wafer paper traced image with you, then what you can do, you can put it back, align it back with the image, and then you can use the thicker side of the edible pen and then mark on the exact lines where the important outline comes. Just a moment. Okay. So this is the other one. It's the same thing. I just wanted to show you that this has been cut into the circle wafer paper. Okay, so that's the cake. On another angle, you'll be able to see the sides. The sides are crumb coated. What basically I suggest people when they are working to just crumb coat the sides and the top having a liberal amount of buttercream, and this after it's been placed. Once you work, whatever color is on the sides, you can use the same thing around and then give a very rustic finish, and that will make the cake look complete. Okay. So this is the sprayer bottle. Okay, so I'm just going to spray on top of the buttercream. You don't have to spray on the wafer paper. I'm just moving this aside. I'll bring it back as I need. Let's put this in the middle. That's just plain water. Why? Because the buttercream will be crusted, right? It will be very dry, and the wafer paper will not stick to it properly. And for that reason, you need to spray out a good amount of water, right? And then I'm just going to align. There will be a little leakage of the color, but then they will be covered with buttercream. So you just make sure the wafer paper is stuck nicely to the cake. Okay. So if there's excess, we can in any day use scissors and then cut it out. Okay. Okay, so now I'll start with the eyes. So I'm just turning it to the way that it will be comfortable for me at an angle. Okay, I will start using the image, the printout as a reference. Which is this, but then there are places where, like this part, just a minute, this part which is brown and then purple, but then overall if you take a look, it looks like it's all black. So I'm also going to keep another mobile which will have the image where I can zoom and then figure out what are the exact shades. Okay, so this is also going to be there where, you know, if you zoom out, you can find it's properly that's the brown and then the purple, and here you can zoom to check if there is this pink, blue and all that. And also for the eyes, where on the paper you will not be able to zoom out, but then our color printout is always useful. Okay, so now I have the black buttercream with me. So I'm going to start tracing out on the eyebrows first. Side. Okay, so I'm going to carefully start with the outline. And then I'm going to fill it inside. Now if this is not very even or smooth on the top, that doesn't matter, because we will use the smallest palette knife and then smooth it out. The only thing that you need to okay, so now I'm going to start doing the other eyebrow. I'm going to start piping. You can see the hole is really very small. Now if you have shivers, you should use your other hand to support. First on the outline, and then fill it inside. Now the level of buttercream that you are using, like as you fill, you can see the buttercream is just taking some height, right? All the rest of your filling that you are doing should have the similar height. And if there is little more on this and then there is not enough on the other eyebrow, then it's not going to look even. Right, so now the next thing that I will do is look for all the black areas so I can just finish off. Now it is better to, though eyes have to be, they have to be so perfect, and it's very scary to start with the eyes. It's better to do them first because you don't lose where the positions are. So for that reason, it is always good to start with the eyes. Now I'm going to do the outline on the eye itself. So I'm just going to be a little gentle and careful watching the outline. I'm just comparing with my image. Okay, and you see this one is also black, which will be this line, and that's a very thin line, so I'm just going to be very gentle in putting the pressure on my piping bag. I'm not going to add a lot of pressure. I don't want a lot of buttercream to come. Any uneven lines can then be fixed with palette knife. So I've covered that area, this one, and you see this end. Okay, so this end is black, right? So that also I'm going to fill up. Okay, so I'm going to do to the other eye. First on the outside. So if you have extra buttercream, that can be removed, but we try and keep up with the outline as much possible. Okay, and then you have this part, right? That is also black. So the top is done, and then I'm going to go one layer above the eyelid, right, and then this part also I'm going to fill them. So this area is marked already with a edible pen. And then here that line is also marked with a marker, and then all here is black. So when you know it's a very flat surface, and then you can add a lot of buttercream, you can put more pressure and then squeeze it out. There's some blue there inside. Okay, so I'm done with the black. So now what I'm going to do, look around what cells are there. See, these are blue. Okay, that's again another blue. Here there's yellow, purple, pink, and there's this part is yellow. This is a darker yellow, red, teal, and all that. So I'm going to quickly fill up the cells above the eyes and all the way till here, leaving out the nose, because as you go, if you're going to lose the most important element, then you will not know what is the exact outline if all the colors are going to merge. So I'm going to leave out the nose and then fill out all these cells with buttercream. So now this will be yellow, right? So I'm going to be within my outline. After I'm done with my outline, and then I'm going to fill out. And then the darker because the hole that I've snipped for the outline, it's a very small opening, right? So if I am looking at filling a larger space, I need to be putting in more pressure. And also, if the buttercream, if it's refrigerated and not thawed down properly, and if you're not going to use spoon and mix it out, then it gets a little difficult to pipe it out of the piping bag. So I'm just going to stay within the outline and be very sure which color falls in what cell. So what you need to worry about at this stage, don't look at the finishing. You know, the surface of the buttercream is not very smooth and it's not good, all that. You don't have to worry. Everything will get smoothened out. What you need to worry at this point of time is the outline, and you're going to stick to that particular color within that outline, right? So you can see this this whole thing is this, and we finished these two, and now I need two shades of pink, which will be these two. This little bit will be purple. Now I'm just going to so I thought it's always better to have a very small opening, because any day you feel like you want to fill up more, you can squeeze more, or then you can also snip it out a little more, bigger hole, right? But if it is bigger and you want it smaller, then you might have to change your piping bag. Okay, and then purple to fill up inside. There's a little pink I've by mistake added, that can be removed out. So the goal is to not have any empty gap between every sections that you have traced out. Okay, and then some red, which will go here. And then here. And then there's this teal here, which I'm going to fill up, and then there's some brown. So as you squeeze, you just need to be looking at what is the height of that buttercream that you are squeezing. You don't want one section to be very the height, the thickness of the buttercream you're piping to be very low, and one part very high. Then as you're going to smooth out, you will have difficulty in blending them and making them look like it's all in one plane. And then there's a little brown. Then I'm making sure there's no gap. So those are the two things that I will pay attention now. All the buttercream are the same level. They are not going to be smooth now, that's fine. And no gap between one color to the other color. Next we will do the blues on the eyes, right? A little below the eyebrows. It's going to okay, so there are two blues. Which I will do. So this is going to be pink, right? So the way you hold the piping bag, it depends. This is a small one, so I know I prefer holding it like a pen. If there's a lot of buttercream, then you can hold it like how you hold your piping bag and then do your ruffles and those kind of work. There's a little light colored here. And then in the rest of the places I'm going to use dark blue, and when I blend, the colors are going to merge. Okay, and all the way here as well. So the blues near the eyes are mostly done. That I need the dark pink. Which is this part right under the eyebrow. Teal. So this area is teal. And this part will be teal as well. So when you're making your buttercream, just make them all one shade lower. Not exactly the same shade from your image. One shade low because it is going to deepen. You need to keep that in mind. And in case it didn't deepen to the way you want, you can add some more gel color when you're working. And when you're starting to work, you can add anytime add extra color, but then if you already have it very dark, then it is a little difficult for you to lighten it. Obviously you can add more buttercream and then lighten, so you try and avoid, maybe you don't have extra buttercream, you've colored everything, and then if you're not left over with any plain buttercream, then it becomes an issue. So always make shades lighter. And then the shade left side here is this light pink. So as you can see, some of the piping bags, the holes are a little bigger than the others. The ones that the holes are bigger, I am able to squeeze it out easily. But those that are having a very tiny hole, then it looks like I have to put a little more pressure. Now here again I am paying attention. So the gap in between the colors are not quite seen outside. So I need to pay attention to that. Also I have to pay attention that I am not erasing off the blacks that have been already piped. Now there's this yellow here. Here I need to pay more attention on the nose outline, trying not to lose it. I don't want to go over the outline of the nose. There's little purple here. Nose I'm going to leave out for now, as I told earlier. All the extra gaps I'm filling. And then there's this major part here which is yellow, the light one. Which goes all the way till here, right? There's a little orangish yellow here.
There's a question from Priya Paul.
Mm-hmm.
Ma'am, any importance of the direction of strokes? Like all the colors should be piped in the same direction.
No, that you can see what I am doing. I'm not paying importance to the stroke because all of it will be blended. Whatever stroke you're going to do, they will be blended at the end. So it is okay to follow a comfortable way for each of them because you just need to outline, fall in the outline and then fill it inside. You try not to do, scribble out inside. That you can avoid because the overall neatness, obviously it will have an effect. So the direction of the stroke, it doesn't matter. Now also, as you are working, sitting and working very closely with your work, sometimes you will make mistake, fill a wrong color in a different cell. So take a pause and step back at a distance, verify and compare if you're filling the exact shade in the right cell. So when you're working, you can maybe split up your work, like say in half. But to understand, maybe you can start with a very small section, fill up and then smooth out. Understand how it goes. And once you got the hang of it, then you can start covering a larger area. Because what happens when you are using this buttercream, it will crust. And then using that palette knife, I'll show you anyway, even if it is crusted, you will be able to work on it. But obviously you cannot leave it out for some time and then take a break and then come back and smooth. That will be a little difficult. Okay. some pink here and then some orange. So this is the nose which I won't touch, and that is the purple. The purple, pink and this brown I will not touch now. So anything that is outside of the nose I'm going to fill up. So which will be orange at this part. And then there is that pink there. Now we are getting closer to the eyes. Now I'll fill the rest of the areas and then we should be ready for smoothing it out. So this very close area around the eyes is this light yellow. Okay, I'm just going to pay attention and do it very slowly and carefully. I'm trying not to lose the outline. But just in case you feel like you overdone and you've just gone over, you can anytime scrape it out and then see where your outline is and then just stick to the outline. So in this gap is this purple. There's pink, light pink here. There's light pink here. So just don't be scared to start out. When you start, you feel like you've made a mistake, you can just scrape out and then try. Then we'll come back and then fill up white. There's a little here. Nose I wouldn't touch. The blue I will extend it till that line. There's a little here and there's a very small line as a continuation here. I'm going to carefully do a thin line, trying not to lose the black that I've made already. The teal color. There's this teal that I'm going to extend out there. Then mark it out till the right, and there's a little here. Here we need dark yellow. There's a dark yellow and there's that little blue and then it ends to the black. Plain buttercream. We have plain buttercream to fill up. This I have not added any color. So in places where we need white, obviously it's not going to be pure white. But you can't leave out just the wafer paper just because you are not able to fill up with a color. So there again, this end, that line, that will be a black, a very thin black, and then the inside of the eyes will be so this part, okay, that will be a black, and here again that will be a black. Now you feel like this has overrun on your outline, you can use this palette knife to scrape if there's anything extra. And here again, to make sure, you need the entire eyes space, right? If there's excess black, you remove them off, and there's very little, but still that makes a difference. So when it comes to very intricate places, just make sure, use this palette knife, push them out, and just ensure that you are sticking to the tracing outline that you've made. Okay, so I'll use the black. Here you need a very thin black line, but without it, it's not going to look good, right? So very thin line. If I overrun on the pink, I will be able to scrape it out, so it doesn't matter. But if you made extra, scrape it. So when it comes to the eyes, obviously so much time has to be put, right? Now this outline, as you see, this is just on both the sides, it's not on the entire the black is not coming down here, right? The black is here, and then that's a semicircle, a closer semicircle. This I'll fill up fully. For this I'll put one on this side, one on this side. Here I'm not going to put. So when you are doing the eyes, obviously our perception about eyes is like, there'll be a black outline. Here just a little bit, and if there's excess, I can clean up with a palette knife. This gets a little difficult with a paintbrush, so I did try with paintbrush, but then making the buttercream sit exactly in that outline is a little difficult with paintbrush. But you can try if you feel like this, using the piping bag and then piping it out. Maybe the control is not there and you're piping out a lot and you feel like you have better control over brush, you can do that. Now clean up. That's a brush. It's a dry brush. I haven't touched water because the buttercream is not very watery and soft, right? So adding water will just also work on the wafer paper and kind of make the color soggy. So that's a dry brush that I'm using to clean up. So now I'll use plain buttercream and fill up, and then there's that extra green that we need to put. That's the white of the eyes. Then the green, that will be the color of the eyeball. They'll get smoothened out. So right now I am filling, and if there's excess we can remove also, so not to worry. This inside will be white, leaving the space black. Black I'm not going to remove, just in case you overpiped it. Now you can go and gently remove off. Smoothing we can see, so I'm just going to verify if I'm done with the shades. Now on the top you can see, as I was sitting I couldn't see this part is left out. I go and figure out what color is that. That's this purple. So after this I'm going to start to smoothen out. So with that you will be able to understand how to fill up. So you can stop at any particular stage like this to get a hang of it, but smoothing out every section is a very laborious and time consuming job, and that you don't want to do. Fill up section and then start doing. Say suppose once you are like kind of gotten all the experience, you can maybe fill up like say half of the cake and then start to smoothen. So that's plain water, and this is the size number 1 on the palette knife set. So I'm going to dip it in water. So depending on how long we have taken to come to this stage, how frequently you need to go back into the water, all that will depend on how long it's been there, right? So you don't wipe the water, you want the moisture, whatever is left, just drip the excess, and then whatever is there, use that. First start with a bigger area. Now I see it is crusted, and then I know my palette knife needs some more moisture, and I need to frequently keep touching because I know the buttercream is crusted now. Also because I am working in AC, so it depends. Maybe yours crusted like mine in the same time, or yours is still soft. So if it is soft or not soft depends on, you want to just smooth out, and if it is going to lift out the buttercream from the back of this palette knife, that's not the right thing to do. So when you smooth, you are not going to pick up a lot of buttercream on the back. You can smooth out, and the most important thing that we need to know here, I've just wiped off the back now, and then I'm going to dip it in water. Now you see there was excess buttercream, and then you're going to merge that with another color that you can't do, right? So now I worked with a lighter yellow, and I know I'm going to the next shade. Now I wiped my back, dipped this in the water, drip off any excess, and then now this is one common mistake that I see most of the beginners can do, which is like, if you're going to just smooth it out to the right, not paying attention to where you stopped this outline, right, then you're overrunning on that particular outline. So you have to gently work within that outline, and when you see you're leaving out the palette marks, you can understand your back of the palette is not clean and there's not enough moisture. So the moment you see you are spreading out palette marks like this, wipe off the palette, dip it into the water, drip the excess off, and then smooth it with the water. Water will go. Okay, so now I'm going to do it to the darker yellow, and now at the place it needs to merge, I'm going to pay a lot of attention trying to close the seams and make it an even layer, but I'm going to be very careful that I'm not going to change the outline. I'm not going to make the yellow go and sit on the outline of the red. So with water, merging them, trying not to overrun one shade into the outline of the other, and making sure the right shades stay the right outline. And when you know the colors are bleeding one from the other, you know you need to wipe off your palette knife. I can see the outline is seen, right? So that needs some more buttercream. If the buttercream is not enough, the outline is going to show. And now you see it's just showing up the dried surface, which means my palette knife doesn't have enough moisture. So when you are using a palette knife and you observe that the palette knife is giving out a rough texture of your buttercream, then you need to go back and dip it in water. So for every 2-3 strokes it is okay to go back to water, and make sure you are falling within the outline. The top is done. I'm just coming from top bottom. I'll drip the excess water. Just don't want the colors to bleed over. Smoothen out without letting the outline deviate from its section. And here you know that the black on the top should be proper. Where I see if buttercream is not enough, say for example that white area, then I will fill it up, plain it.
Somebody was saying image is coming blurred.
You're just checking that. See if others can just comment if you are able to view it properly, or if all of you have the same trouble, then we'll just have it checked here. So once you are going to allow the buttercream to crust a bit, right, even when you're going to use the palette knife, it will not overrun.
So one more question from Sangeeta Reddy.
Yeah.
Do we need to set up bowls of water to dip the palette knife?
No, because I'm wiping out, that's a clear water, right? I'm going to wipe out with a towel and use my clean spatula every time into the water. As long as your water is clean, or if you've just taken in a lot of the colored buttercream in and the water's colors changed, then maybe you can change the water. I didn't find the need to use different bowls. Plain buttercream. This part I will have to correct it.
It's clear for Priya and Rupa.
Okay, ma. Okay. So I'm moving on to this side.
Sangeeta Reddy says it's not blur, but when you're working with palette knife, sometimes the mood is getting paused. The movement is getting paused.
Okay.
Is that hot water?
No, it's a plain water. Just drinking water. You don't want to use hot onto buttercream because the butter's color will change. You heat butter, it changes to ghee, right? So obviously the color will change. So don't use hot water with buttercream. Just plain room temperature water is enough. So I'm merging all the seams, especially the seams shouldn't be seen much. So I'm staying within my outline. If I feel that any buttercream has just overrun the outline, I'll scrape it out. Red like that.
Question from Priya.
Mm-hmm.
How long the buttercream stays good when refrigerated?
No, it stays like say more than a couple of weeks. So if it is properly refrigerated, like maybe if you're just taking out and then it's there whole day and then only every night you're going to refrigerate, then maybe not longer. But then if you've made and then if it can stay there, even like a month is fine. It's just butter as much as if you not added milk or cream to it. But in the recipe I've shared, we've used only water, right? So that will stay. If you're using milk, then obviously the shelf life will reduce. But if you know that you are going to use it up in 2-3 days and you don't have to store it, you can use milk or cream in place of water in the recipe. Yeah.
One more question. My design have very thin lines. The same smoothing technique with palette knives can be used for thin lines.
Yes, you can use. So when you can see there are thin lines here on the fingers, right? In those places as well, we've used the same palette knife and it did work. So you try out because the brush if you feel this, if you're unable to handle the palette knife, you can switch over to a brush, but obviously brush is going to leave out strokes, and it will be a little difficult to clear away the brush strokes. But the other the alternate to this palette knife will be brush. Here they will be overrun with a black, that I will be correcting it. For right now I'm just merging it out. So all these places, it's overrun into the next section. Some more black I will add. I just need to fill this and make it a little thicker. Green also I'll fill up a little bit. So I'll use black on top of it. Either I can remove some of the green and then get the black that's under the green, because I just overrun, right? Or I can pipe the black on the top, or allow it to dry a little bit and then you can use your palette knife, because there's quite a bit of water that is added, right? You can allow that to crust a bit. Just using brush. There I see excess water is there, so I'm just removing it with a brush. I'm going to compare the painting and see, now to correct the eyes wherever I see excess black, which is the outline on the eyeball, that I can use this brush to correct it. So this part is the green. Now you see the places which are overrun. If you need to fill it up, you have to make the buttercream stay in the same level, right? So you need to remove the buttercream in whichever place that you feel like is overrun, and then fill it up with that particular shade and then smooth out. So here that part will be plain buttercream or the light yellow. So I'll just add this plain buttercream in that gap. And because that's freshly piped, you can see without dipping in water. If it smooths out, that's good then. If it is dry, then you need to dip it in water. So there's that clear pink area which is overrun with black. So to understand if you actually going on the right direction, you need to step back because you're very close and sometimes you're not sure if you're doing right or not. So now if there's excess, I just removed it off. I mean, pulled it to one side, and this excess is there. Without disturbing, I just need to take this part out. Like so. So you don't want to take out a lot, but just there's a little bit extra that you need to remove. For thin lines, I'm just trying the brush because it's very thin, and if the brush strokes doesn't matter, you can use that. But clean up for every stroke or remove the excess. Okay, so I'll leave it out for some time, allow it to dry. This bit needs to be smoothened out. Now you're using brush, obviously you're going to leave out a lot of brush strokes. You will step back and check if the eyes need a little more correction. Now let's allow that continue and finish the rest, for which what I'm going to do, as I said, right side Gayatri is going to start filling and I am going to start filling. We keep this image as a reference. We are going to pay attention to the finger. Okay, so you can see that because they are different colors, the possibility is that we merge out the fingers. So when you're working on your image, you see there are different colors, but then at the end of it you need to figure out where the nose is, where the lips are. You just can't be blending out all the colors. You need to just focus and keep out the important elements and not lose out the main outline of the important parts, right? So let's start filling out. Hair we'll do at the end. Now I'll fill out the rest of the cheek, the neck, and maybe I reach till the lip, nose, and let Gayatri start from the other side. And once you're done filling the entire thing, then we are going to start doing the same smoothing process to the entire thing. Now for you to understand, I filled up the sections and I've smoothed out. There is more smoothing to be done. Here I know it's not properly smooth. I'm going to allow it some time. And if you observe, this part is proper. This part is smoothened out. I'm quite happy with this section. Obviously, I need to work on the top area as well, for which I see this part is a little raised and here it's a little lower. So which means this needs some more buttercream, so they will all come at the same level. That part of the work is there. But let's not focus too much on the perfection, which I will at the end, finish it out. But we don't want to leave this half done. So let's start filling out the colors.
Like two questions. Priya about colors can then be added to the thought plain buttercream unused. Is adding colors prior to and refrigerating is just to get a deepened shade? Any other reason?
See, you add the color, it's just a job done. and obviously the colors will deepen. Say suppose you are coloring it, making the buttercream, leaving the entire plain buttercream in the fridge, taking out the next day and coloring it and not allowing the time for it to deepen, and you're putting it on the cake and you're going to work on the cake like say for 8 hours or 10 hours, obviously the color on the cake will deepen. So obviously the deepening is something that you cannot avoid. It's not that you color and then use it and then you're going to save your buttercream from deepening the color. Obviously there will be deepening. So it is better to color it the previous day and then use it the next day, so you know what exact shades you're working on the cake. So you don't want to work on a lighter cake on the cake and then suddenly then everything turn into dark at the end of 8 hours or 10 hours, and then you feel like, you know, there's the brown and the black are all the same. So that will be something that you want to avoid. So it's always preferable to color the previous day.
Something from Kausalya Kalyan. Ma'am wish to show the type of brushes we will be using before using them so we will not go wrong.
See, what I've already said is, this is a normal synthetic brush, right? The round brush or something, very simple brushes are enough. These are the round brushes. Obviously these will be used for bigger surfaces. This I prefer, so you can do very intricate outline. Flat brushes look like this. These are nothing but Faber-Castell synthetic, okay, and these are flat. Obviously if it is a very, you know, bigger surface, then it is going to be useful. And these are some round brushes as well, the bigger ones, but you don't have to really invest in a lot of different kinds of brushes. One thin size 1, 2, this is a caking it up size 0, and if you get hold of a good size 0, size 1, 2 on the round, and same with size 2 and 4 in flat should be enough. That question's done. So right now Gayatri will also help me fill up this entire thing. So we're just going to bring in all the colors. So let me start doing this side. Gayatri can start with the fingers. The hair we will do once we are done with all the face and this part of the neck. Okay, so I will just start doing out from this area, for which I need purple is this part. So you will be doing
Start from this finger and go on to this.
yes. So you'll be seeing 2 pairs of hands.
Can we use any other buttercream for filling and crumb coating the cakes on the sides and top of the cake, and use your buttercream only for the palette knife?
Yes, you can do that. You can do that. Once you've practiced with this cream, you can use the same maybe Italian meringue or whatever frosting that you're working on. You can use the same thing to even do this technique. But whatever you ask, that is also feasible. That is also something that you can do.
I'm having a plastic palette knife. Is that fine to work with?
Yes, it's fine.
What are the must colors we should have?
Must colors, I don't think you can define the must colors. Obviously, maybe when my students, I ask them to first stock up the colors, I ask them to buy the 12 crayon colors. With that, you can mix and match. You don't really need all the, unique shades unless you know that you need to consistently have that color. Say maybe you have a 5-tier wedding cake and then you don't want to mix and match. Then you need to go and procure that unique color, a particular shade of teal. And now that you will not have teal in your, say suppose you don't have a teal, then obviously with blue and green you will be able to make teal. So the basic set of 12 colors is something that you can initially procure and keep. And with that, if say suppose you need a burgundy, then if you're not sure how to do, just go Google for how to get burgundy using basic colors. It will tell you what to mix. Your red and brown and a little bit of black, or what is the shade that you're looking at. Say turquoise is not there with you. Then with again with blue and green, you'll be able to make a turquoise. So that also you should be able to Google and then find out. So basic colors will be set of 12.
Sangeeta Reddy is asking if we make this cake 1 to 2 days prior, how to store it?
No, once you've done with your work, you put them in the fridge. And when you are going to put your cake in the fridge, you need to understand the next day the cake is going to condense. To beat the condensation, you should be working in an AC room, a fully chilled room, and you take it out from the fridge the day you're going to work again, the second day, and give it some time till the condensation happens. So water droplets will definitely happen, and you need to allow the water droplets to go off. And once it's gone, then you can continue working. So if you're working for 3-4 hours the next day, then put it back in the fridge and let the condensation happen, like say 4 hours. Give it 4 hours in an air conditioned room, and then you should be fine.
Sangeeta Reddy is asking crayon colors, question mark.
Crayon colors, I just meant to say all the basic set of 12 colors. So if you buy a small crayon box, what will be the colors that will be there? Your red, blue, green, yellow, orange, purple, black, brown, white, so those are the colors. In case I miss out what are the 12, any basic color pencil set, if you buy the 12 set, that's the basic, right? When you buy that, what will be the shades in that box? So those be the colors that you can write down to buy your edible colors. I don't mean to get the crayon colors, it's just to understand what shades, the basic shades that you need to buy.
Thank you, ma'am. Sangeeta Reddy says, thank you, ma'am. I need finished cake.
Finished cake, yeah, you can keep it in the fridge. How long would you
Sangeeta
want?
Reddy is the person who asked, can we use any of the buttercream for filling and crumb coating the cakes on the sides and top of the cake? And use your buttercream only for palette knives, which you answered.
Okay.
She's okay. So, if we make the cakes 1 to 2 days here, how to store it? And then she's asking how to store the finished cake.
Finished cake can go in the refrigerator. Obviously, longer duration in the fridge you take out, there will be more condensation. So you have to know how long before you need to finish it. 8 hours, 24 hours in the fridge should be fine. More time is also fine, but then you need a very cold room. So the condensation is not going to have a huge effect.
So we cannot directly paint on the cake. The wafer paper is must.
So I'll explain once I'm done. I'll explain what is the other method that we did. We were in the online course what we were doing before. In that the wafer paper is not a must. But then it's not a very sure shot method. That also needs a little more practice. I'll explain how that method is done. இந்த ப்ளூ போட்டிங்களா? இல்லை, இந்த ப்ளூ இங்கே இருக்கு.
Why do we need black outlines? Can we do with this with the same color sketch?
You can do with black outline because the edible pen, I presume that most of us will be having access to black edible pen. That is something that everybody, even not even everybody will have, but at least that will be useful for most of the other cake work, right? Sketch is not ideal because this is going on the cake, right? So you want it edible, and using other color and then painting it is not a feasible option. So you can't use sketch. But yes, if you have the 12 colored edible pen, then you can use. It has to be an edible pen. And black is universal. You can use it for a lot of other things. So okay, now the nose. This nose போட்டீங்களா? நான் இந்த சைடு போட்டேன். That's a darker brown. I'm just using some light brown and then some dark brown. Brown.
Any hacks to remove the condensation on buttercream cakes? If it's not possible to thaw in air-conditioned atmosphere, what would be the ideal temperature in fridge?
No, you keep anything in the fridge and then you take it out. Obviously, there will be condensation. When a glass of water from the fridge, you take it out. You cannot avoid the water droplets from forming, right? So, if you do not have an air conditioned room, then the next thing that I suggest is to not refrigerate at all. So you need to use fillings that are fine to be in the room temperature, or say maybe you can work with ganache. You can fill the cake with ganache and not add any perishables, and then work with American buttercream, and well, that can stay in the room temperature for a couple of days, and that doesn't really do any harm to your cake. If you don't have an AC, then that is an option.
Hi ma'am, I have filled the buttercream for half and I'm doing rest in the next day. So does the condensation process will blend all my buttercream that's already done or the color will change?
Now, if there is proper AC and you are allowing the condensation to go, then nothing will happen. A lot of my students have done this, and so AC is necessary if you are going to refrigerate half done cake and you are going to take it out. Without AC, then you have trouble refrigerating. So then you can choose to leave it in the room temperature and not use perishable. If it is just buttercream, you can leave it in the room temperature.
Is Swiss buttercream or Italian buttercream also fine?
Yes, they are fine. Once you're done, practice with this, and then you can even continue using Swiss meringue or Italian meringue, and then you can do the same thing. It's just that as a first time working on a technique, American buttercream is always easy. You can do the same thing using white ganache as well. Exactly same thing. You can color white ganache, whip them. If you know to work with white ganache earlier, then you can prefer to do that. I'm going to say careful.
Ma'am, for me in Germany in winters we have temperature in minus. We don't have AC rooms. So how to troubleshoot with condensation?
Now you see what happens to the water bottle that you take it out from fridge. How long does it take for the water droplets on the outside of your water bottle to go away on its own? Now if you don't see any trouble there, trouble means like if the water droplets are going off all by themselves, then you can keep the cake in the room temperature, I mean your room temperature, without having to trouble too much with the AC. Obviously, if the humidity is not there and if it is a very cool place, then your room temperature will be the air conditioned temperature that I am talking about. Trying and being within my outline, like I said before, started to smoothen out. Now on the teeth you can see there is like quite a bit of the dark, the black outline, right? All that will be removed. It's just as a marking. Now if there's too much that we compare from the inspiration and this one, that will be removed. We can allow it to crust and remove, that will be a little easier.
Can a whipped cream cake be used instead of buttercream cake?
See, if you use a whipped cream cake, then this entire thing you have to do on whipped cream, because you have a whipped cream cake underneath and then the buttercream will weigh down. Buttercream is heavy, so there will be a lot of weight for the cake underneath with a lot of whipped cream as filling and all. So you can do the same thing with whipping cream, but I would suggest, like say maybe after 2-3 trials using this buttercream, and then you should be able to do the same thing using other mediums as well. But here you know that this will crust, right? When you need to understand the medium. Now you know the whipping cream, you work with it quite a bit, and then you know that it is not going to crust, it will be soft. So when you're just smoothing out, the edges will the outline will overrun easily. So there you need to be a little more careful, for which some practice is needed, which you can do using this buttercream. And then you can do it with even ganache, like I said. So with whipped cream as well holds good.
Whipping cream will not start melting as it's been outside for so long.
That you need to work, keep the whipped cream in the fridge only just before it is needed. You can't keep it out for long. Now you know that it is going to lay outside and then it is going to melt. Then what you can do, you can have a bowl of a big tray of ice cubes. Create your own DIY, cool pad, which will be a tray full of ice, and then place another tray on top of it and leave the piping bag with colors filled on top of that tray. So the ice cubes underneath will keep the top tray quite cool, right? And that will be like a fridge for some time. And obviously you need AC, but the colors, the whipping cream in the piping bag will remain quite stable for a longer period of time. So when you are using whipped cream, initially try to work on a simpler image, which doesn't include a lot of intricate colors like this one. This is taking time because of lot of colors and lot of smaller cells that way. Now here I need to be very careful. That is my jawline, and there is already a light color in the image. So I just need to be very careful not to overrun the jawline. That will be this pink and along with this blue.
Is ganache the cake also fine? Is ganache cake also fine instead of buttercream cake?
Yes, as I said, if it is a ganache cake, say you're filling with ganache, frosting it with ganache one whole coat, and say if it is a dark ganache or a milk ganache, then on the outside you can do white ganache and then color them like you've done the buttercream and use white ganache on top. That is also fine. And using this same buttercream on top of the ganached cake is also okay, as long as Because someone asked you a ganache cake, say maybe they don't like buttercream, that you need to be sure before putting buttercream on top. And if they are okay for this particular technique to be with buttercream, and they just caring about just the cake, yeah, it's okay for me to have a ganached cake, and I mean they really want a ganached cake and it's okay for them to have buttercream on top, you can go with buttercream, that doesn't matter.
How to bring dark colors in whipping cream?
You need to add a lot of color initially itself. Obviously, you can try paste colors rather than gel colors. And these days, it also depends on the brands. Some brands give you the darker shade without even taking in a lot of colors. So see which brand gives you the best result, then just stick with that brand. There are quite a few reds. Obviously, if one red is not giving you a good shade with just the nominal quantity of the color that you feel like you want to use, if it takes more, then maybe change the brand, change the red color or the black. So I as a tip, if I give for a red, without consuming a lot of red color, you don't want to invest a lot of red color alone, the tip that I give is red is to orange is to pink in the ratio of 3:2:1, and that will take you to the red quicker than all of the red that you will have to add. And then say black you are trying to do, you can add brown and then take it to a dark brown shade and then add black, so it will consume lesser black, but obviously it would have consumed enough of the brown as well, but then at least to some ratio you can reduce the addition of colors.
Please repeat ratio.
Ratio of proper red is to orange is to pink in the ratio of 3:2:1. So say maybe you are adding a tablespoon, say 3 teaspoons of red, then you need to add 2 teaspoons of orange and 1 teaspoon of pink. And then so later on you will see if it is like too orangish, then add some red, and then maybe it is not getting into a real bright red, then add orange, then it will take you to a bright red. And this, depending on what other shade you want, 1 or 2 drops of brown will give you a little different shade of red. So you can just play around with these shades.
Can you please share the proportion of white ganache which should be best to use?
White ganache is 3:1. 3 parts chocolate, 1 part cream. And when you're working with white ganache, you have to make the ganache the previous day. Okay. And obviously any ganache for that matter, it's better to make a day before. You'll allow it to set right. The similar thing will happen to white ganache as well. And the next day when you're ready to work with it, you need to whip it. See, the dark ganache and the milk ganache, when you're making, you will just soften up with your spatula, right? But white ganache has to be whipped in a hand beater or KitchenAid or your stand mixer. Okay, and if it is a gooey mixture and it doesn't turn stiff, making you easy to work with, then it should be refrigerated for half an hour or so. And once it is cold, you whip it again. So the consistency of the white ganache before you are starting to work with it should be a dense whipped cream consistency. It should, like when you whip a whipped cream, how is it going to look, right? With the beater blades properly seen and stiff consistency. and all that. Your white ganache should go into that stage, and only then it is ready to work. If it is a very gooey mixture, then it is not yet ready and you need to allow it to be whipped, for which refrigeration is very essential.
Will wafer paper become soggy on whipped cream?
Becoming soggy is better because you just need the outline, after which if it remains soggy, it is good because while cutting the cake it's not going to be difficult. But with American buttercream, if you're going to send a cake with American buttercream and say like maybe after 8 hours, once the water is all dried up, the wafer paper will be hard. When in IMBC and whipped cream, the outline will remain but the wafer paper will be soggy, but then it will not affect your technique because the outline will still remain and then you can go on top of it and do whatever you're doing now. But when you are going to cut the cake, it will be like an edible print. How it will be for you to cut an edible print stuck on top and then you're cutting the cake, that's how it will be if you're going to use this on a whipped cream cake.
In the freezer, can the ganache cake be frozen and then work on it?
Why do you want to freeze a ganache cake? Refrigeration is fine. Freezer is for really longer duration, or if you want to store it for really long, like say more than a month or so, then you would need freezer. Otherwise fridge is enough. But you can use freezer for a short burst. You want something to be chilled up in a shorter duration, like you don't have 1 hour in the fridge, then 10 minutes in the freezer will do. That's the purpose and the difference between the fridge and the freezer. You don't want to keep your cake in the freezer because that will have a lot of condensation which you don't want to have. We just need to do a bit of corrections.
So what will be the ratio of white ganache now if we do it with white ganache instead of buttercream?
White ganache, I just said it will be 3:1. 3 part chocolate, 1 part cream.
Can we place the wafer paper on the cake board, do all the painting there, and then let it dry and then place on the cake? Is it possible?
No, I did try, but then it is not very easy to lift it from the board. What happens, the buttercream is breaking and cracking, and it's not very easy that way. I did try think of that option, but yeah, it is not quite easy to do that. Teeth open. The light pink போடணும். Okay, I'm just removing. The nail is not that much, so I'm removing off and adding some pink there. Now all the seams should be sealed out. Here there is not so much of the black above the lips, so I'm using dry brush.
How much should one sell the palette knife cake in INR?
In INR, see, it depends on how much skill level you have acquired after this. If you're still practicing and say you're putting in like say 20 hours, it doesn't mean all the 20 hours should be billed. But then if you acquired good amount of skill and then you are spending say maybe 5 hours, then depending on the complexity, say for this image you can choose to charge say an additional 2000 to the regular per kg price that you're selling. Maybe it's a 2 kilo cake, the 2 kilos price can be your own price, and for a portrait painting like this an additional 2000 should be fine. But anything simpler, then maybe you can charge lesser than that.
And how much time it will take for us as a fresher to complete this technique on the cake?
See, you need to first practice on the board. My students take about 10 hours. You break down the time and say work on it 2 days, and total time taken will be 10 hours say. Then on the cake, obviously you don't have so much time. I don't want them to keep the cake for long hours, and they'll take say 6 hours to complete on the cake. But then they have had taken the practice on the board, the coloring practice, everything is done. So on the cake you need to take 5-6 hours.
Can we use this technique for watercolor scenery on the front of the cake? If yes, how to resize the image?
You need to do, instead of a circle, it needs to be a rectangle, right? On the circumference, you calculate the circumference only on the front, means the circumference, and then the height of the cake will be the rectangular sheet. Then just the front half will be half of the circumference and the height of the cake will be the rectangular sheet, right? So put that on the canvas for the height and the width, and then put your image into it and then drag it. So you will do the exact same thing. His teeth need some fixing, obviously, because a lot of black was added, but then that you have a one size 1 round nozzle, then you can add the thin lines, and maybe you can avoid this rework with a brush. I just need to look from far if how does it look, because I'm very close to it, no? So what are the features, the placement of the features and all that is not very clear to me. I need to just step back and check if the eyes and the nose are fine. It's a little blue here. There's a little blue here which is missed. You can see here it's missed, right? So I'm just going to remove this off and then add the blue.
Is it possible to work on a board and then transfer the sheet to a cake? If possible, the condensation again creates bleeding.
From the board it is not possible to shift. Maybe you can try, but then when you lift, say see this is the board, right, that I have worked. You can see the colors are going to break, right? It's not possible to lift. The buttercream is just going to break. It's not going to allow you to move from the board into the cake that easily. Let's see what else is needed to be fixed. So when you are working, rather than looking at it from your own eyes, you take a picture of it. Okay, and then view it through the picture and then compare it with the original. Okay, so now I can zoom to see if my eyes are fine. Nose, they look pretty much good. Now I can compare what else I can do with my nose. Okay, so here you can see there is this dark part that is the continuation of the lip. Okay, so that comes all the way down here. This part is there, but then it doesn't go all the way till there, so that needs to be added. So when you keep looking at your cake, sometimes you'll miss out the details. So take a picture. I would like the teeth also to be a little more better. The black outline is, that's a lot of black outline. I need to remove off some black and add the the light purple is what I've added. So now I'll go add this dark just under the pinky finger. remove பண்ணிட்டேன் finally. So just want to remove some buttercream because you want that to be in the same level. I'm just creating a cavity there. So I'm going to smoothen out. Merge a little bit of the black with the shadow on the lip.
Ma'am, will the customers pay for the effort taken for the palette knife when they think that they get almost the same thing in sugar sheet?
So sugar sheet, obviously, for a client who is okay to have a sugar sheet on the cake, you can give that. But obviously to create a scenery and then put in your own efforts, the client, it depends. When if the client, sometimes these days I even see clients asking for fresh flowers instead of sugar flowers because it takes in a lot of time. So obviously there will be cases where people don't want to afford, but skill development is something beyond what the client actually wants to buy from you, right? So by learning this, your perspective towards a lot of other things will change. So this will reflect in the rest of your other cake work, trying and being within the boundary, and then working on the perfection will reflect in a lot of other things. So skill building is different. So obviously, is it okay to have sugar rose? We still have a plastic rose. Can I buy and keep? Obviously, so the difference, obviously plastic rose is not edible, but fresh rose. So if a client is okay for a lesser cost and fresh rose is okay for them, but still there are clients who want sugar flowers on their cake, right? But then a lot of us do sugar work and then have realistic sugar flowers are still in trend and they're not going to fade away as well. So in those lines, yes, skill building to me is very important because you don't want to be stuck because something is already available like the ready-made print, and so it is okay for you to not build the skill is something that I wouldn't recommend. In the teeth part, I'm just going to add some more.
Can we use this technique for some scenic scene also?
everything. Because why I preferred portrait is because it is very difficult. Say suppose I showed a scenic and then did some trees and moon and boat and all that, right? It is very easy, but then if you want to go back and try a portrait, then it is very difficult. So to avoid this doubt of I have done scenery, can I do a portrait, is a little difficult. That is not easy. But then if you've learned to do the portrait, then anything else is very easy. So once I feel like I've done with the teeth, I'll have to take a picture myself to check if it's okay or what correction does it need. Just want to see if the outline. So now we can still continue, not leave it like this. Obviously this is not the, now the placement is all good. Let me take another picture. Teeth should still be better. You see through a camera. I'm just getting the picture. Teeth has just gotten pretty dark, right? Okay. Just work on teeth.
It has so many defined colors in it, but with actual face or say skin shade blending, how do we proceed?
See, skin shade and blending, like how we've done here for the brown and the black, right? You need to just blend the color. So you have marked your outline for the blush on the cheek and then the rest of the skin color, right? You need to just blend them like how the black and the brown is blended here. Try it on a picture. So it looks a little projected, right? With this part I will just remove off excess water. Okay, so maybe if it is not for this light, then maybe I would have spent another 1 hour probably, um, basically for smoothing out the entire thing, which will be to see where the seams are not blended well. Like this, and if it is crusted, you need to add, dip the palette knife in the water and then add it, and there again, because it is crusted, a lot of water is just on the top. You want to just remove the excess water, spend some time to smoothen out. So those who will be working on your cake, like you already know that you have 2 weeks time to complete, you can work on your board first and then take approval. You can check stages and then also let you know. You can just post your stages, and if I am available on the Facebook to comment, then I'll just give out my suggestion how to go forward. If something is wrong, then I'll be able to tell you about it also. So I think I'll stop with this, but if given the time, I will go smooth out. Like say this is a little dented, some more cream is needed here, and then a little here as well. I'll continue smoothing them out. This part is a little dented, like I told initially. I would have added the same color here and then lifted it up to even them out. But then that's I don't want to spend more time making you watch just the smoothing part, which now. Like say for example, this seam is there. You don't want to have that seam. You want that to be covered up. And well, blending also happens similar to that. What I can do, just show you the blending part, because the board is there. Another round board you can, with white board extra. So what I will do, you can keep asking your the queries. The meantime, because the doubt was there, I will just move this on a plain board. Now let me just add in 2 shades, say 2 pinks, and then blend it out and show. Okay, so now say plain buttercream and then 2 shades of pink. Say suppose you're adding this is in a section, okay, and then say next comes the light pink. So that will be in a different shape depending on your cake, right? Now that it is not crusted at all, still let's dip the thing in water. First we are going to smoothen out. If the palette knife picks up the buttercream, you want to dip it back in water. Okay, so now this is what I have done, right? Now here you want this shades to blend, then you overrun. And allow the colors to blend here. But then the possibility of this will be lesser, because in this outline method there are different shades. So now say suppose if there is this light pink and then the dark pink, you have already demarked them using your outline, so each of them will be a different shade. Okay, say suppose you have this and you don't want, you know, this pink and then the white to start immediately, but then you want a blended layer in between. Add white leaving out gap for the pink to be there, and then add, I have done that in quite a few places, somewhere near the hair, and then go on with all the pink here. Now if this is smoothed out, then you will have the ombre shade from the pink, and then it just slowly moves on to the white. And you still need some blending. You are allowed to, you know, use the palette knife here and then just mix it up. That you can do here also. But the point here is, for this technique, we are not going to overrun the outline we've done, right? You can do the mix up here. So the ombre transition happens here only. So when in your image, wherever it is demarked, you will stick to those colors, and on the outline you will just smooth them out. Okay, so this transitions from the pink, and then there is this white and pink mixed together, and then you have the proper white. Okay.
Should we wait for your approval after each step?
No, ma, you don't have to wait. You can continue, but just wait. See what feedback I have. If you really feel that you are not able to continue, and then you can see what you can do after my feedback. But if you're sure what you are doing, but then you just want to make sure whether you're going in the right direction, and then you can keep continuing, you are allowed to do that. Okay. So let me just
Previously, what technique you used before water paper advance?
Paper paper. Yeah, I am going to turn the camera back, and then I am going to read through the rest of the comments, and then, you know, explain what the other technique is. So I'm just going to bring this. These are the dried out buttercream that just fell off, because I tried to lift it off, right, to show. So these are the crusted pieces of the buttercream. So obviously, because both of us were working, this has taken lesser time, and I think we've managed to finish it within the time. What difference I see? There's this blending of this black and the brown, which is a little different here. And yeah, some more merging here that we can look out and do. So as you are doing, like, I'll be able to tell you where exactly it's not smoothened out and all. Some of these mergings, then if I sit and spend some more time, then I can make this a little more perfect. Okay. So let me turn the camera back. Obviously, one camera will focus on okay. So the let me just smoothen for the face and give a rustic look for the surroundings. Yes, smoothen for the face and the rustic look for surroundings will be good. That one Grace's cake, that I posted, where the the image has a face where half lip is seen, and then there's hair on the other side. She's done a lot of textures on the hair itself. Hair is not smooth, So obviously you can do, see, this is one way, the basic technique where you can just do them right. On top of this, you can do a lot of improvisations, like you can, create, like you said, rustic finish on the sides. And then the hair, maybe you can actually give 3D kind of hair, like pipe little more buttercream, and then use your brush or the palette knife to give textures for the hair. Will the image look smooth or rustic after we finish? It looks smooth. It looks smooth because you're going to spend more time on this and then smoothen out. So whatever you finish with the water and give a finish, then the water will evaporate obviously, but the glossiness will go, but the texture on top will remain as it is. So the previous technique is what we did, we didn't use the wafer paper. So you need to print the image. Still the canvas editing and printing on the paper is all the same. After which you need to have a needle, a sharp needle, and you need to place that image, the resized image, on a dummy or a sheet of thermocol. Place it on top and then use the needle and then go over the outline and then poke the holes using the needle very close to each other. Obviously they shouldn't tear, right? But they're very close to each other. You need to poke the holes. Now entire, whatever you will be doing using the pen here, you will poke the holes in all the areas. And then that image you will have to take and place it on the cake. Now there are holes all over where the outline will be there, right? Now you can either use airbrush. Airbrush is the preferred thing at this point. Now add any color, a darker color, like maybe the black or dark red or blue, whatever color, and then airbrush on the places. I mean, you can do to the entire sheet as well, but you have to focus on the places where you've made the holes. So you airbrush on the areas where the holes are there in all the places. It is a normal paper, and then you can remove it off because the underside is dry. You're not brushing any water there, right? You can also do that using a parchment paper. So you can trace the image on the parchment paper. Use the parchment paper to poke the holes throughout, very close holes, otherwise you will lose where the eyes are. And after the airbrush, you remove the paper. It can be the normal paper or it can be the parchment paper, you remove it off. So now your cake will have the dots in colors. So the outline is transferred using the colored dots. But the disadvantage here will be, once you lost the eyes, if you're scraping out, you will scrape the buttercream into which the dotted colors, airbrush colors is also there, right? So then it is very, very difficult to put the eyes back in place. But well, for not a very intricate work, you can try that method. So what I will do, so this I just verbally explained. There is a post on the Cakes Unplugged. The group's name on Facebook is Cakes Unplugged by Fun Bites Magazine. I will give the link to this post that I am talking about. It is a very detailed write-up by Kashmira Dige Iyer. She is the one who had been working as a mentor for FODMC, the online cake decorating course, and say up to 4 batches she had been mentoring palette knife and pointillism. She's a portrait artist and she's done exceptionally well, grooming a lot of people to the portrait painting. I had not been supporting portrait painting, but she had to relieve from being a mentor, after which I learnt portrait painting basically, and then I started mentoring people do this. So she had written a post which is a very detailed post on how to do the transfer the image using this technique that I'm talking about, which does not involve wafer paper. So what I'll do after the live, I'll give that link to that group. But you need to be a member of that group, for which obviously you send the join request and then I will add you into that group. So you can read that post and that will give you a further clearer image. But it is the same process that I have described now, but that you can maybe read the post and then you will have a clear idea. Okay, so any other doubts? I'm reading how to do the final coating of buttercream on the side without disturbing the color on the top. The top doesn't get disturbed at all because you're not going to smooth out the sides. You're going to put the same color on the piping bag, right? And then use the sides. The side is still there. The side is not there. I'll just try and see and the buttercream. Crumb coated the cake, yeah. See, you can now I'll just chop off the sides. Oh, okay. Let me just put the camera back. To the side. I just remove the side to put it. Let me check the side. Yeah, okay. So on the sides here, right? So you will just not disturb the top. What you're going to do, I just snipped off the same buttercream piping bag. Any other color? You can just add, make it marble. I usually suggest that be the darkest shade of the background. Yes. So then I'm going to use a palette knife to just smooth out. It's not going to, because you're not trying to get any sharp edges on top of this. All the buttercream will be here, and then any excess will be removed from the sides itself. Just smoothen within this area. Just be a little careful here. Just go up till where the wafer paper is or your work is. And here, like I said, you don't want to keep it smooth. When trying and using a scraper on the sides to smooth out is when you will have to get the frosting on the top for the sharp edges and all. So here you will finish it rustic only. Or you prefer to cover the cake, like say you don't want the rustic, you really want a neat finish, then cover the cake in the outermost color, like say on the navy blue, right? And then on the top you use this, and sides are not touched only. So usually you know what color you're just going to use it for the top. Now this will not, like I'm just trying to show, like even you to go till the edge This will not disturb. So any excess cream will be removed from here itself, from the sides itself. You don't have to go and touch the edge of the cake. So these are excess, trying and not allowing me to do a marble. So this you can continue. So now I have excess here that I am just going to scrape it. You don't want to keep doing this with the excess remaining in your palette knife. So go till the edge. Say if you feel this is excess, remove it. So you will just be playing here only on the sides, and this will not affect what is on the top. What else? Can we smoothen for the face and give? Now reading the final comments. Huh? Side without disturbing top. Tips on correcting mistakes. Correcting mistakes. Say, now that we are done with this cake, no? So it's okay to see somewhere that we can mess up a bit. Okay, say suppose the lips outline. Or is it okay? So okay, lips outline. Say suppose you just overrun on your lips. Now you can scrape off that part. The outline on the wafer paper will remain. Okay. Say suppose this was overrun. You will scrape the part on the little above as well. Okay. And then now you will go back and then fill that part. So correcting the mistakes is like scraping of whatever you do. Just don't be worried at all about scraping. It's just obviously it's all the hard work, but it's all the learning. So you scrape off, and then once you see the outline, the right outline, you will fill it up. Wow, that light purple. இங்க இருக்கு. See it. So when you know you've made a mistake, just scrape and see what is the outline below, and then fill it up with a shade. And this particular thing is not easy when you are not going to use A4 paper and then follow that other technique that I was talking about. And that's exactly when I was not sure to teach this to people if I'm not going to be checking every stage. Now after it's been scraped out, then people don't know from where they have to continue, for which I should understand the people's learning ability and all that. When I cannot break down into simple steps and then tell people, hey, this is what you need to do. But with this wafer paper, yeah, there is this formula. When you have trouble, then this is the way you can correct it. And only after this wafer paper, I thought it is easier for anybody to learn. I mean, I don't have to know what is your learning ability to teach this, because once you follow this as given, the errors will be very, very minimal. Okay, so read out the next question.
Matching color to the image in the buttercream is a challenge. Please advise tips.
Okay. So I'm going to put this back. So the color thing that I was talking about, see, first you need to know the name of the color, teal, and then you know that is a lighter version of the teal or burgundy, or is it a darker version of burgundy, and all that. First you will have to know the name of the color. Is it teal or turquoise? Now, see, you know it's a unique color, and then you figure out the name of it. The next thing you can do is to go on Google, see how to get teal color. Then you will obviously have an answer saying mix color blue and green, and in teal there is a little bit more green, and in turquoise it's also a mix of blue and green, but there's a little bit of more blue. How do I know all that? By doing Google. Okay. Now burgundy. Now how to get a burgundy color using basic colors? The Google will tell you red, brown and black, and sometimes say there is, you mix purple and something and then you have another color. So even if you do not have the gel colors with you of all the unique shades that you want to try, you Google off and then it is going to give you the answer, and then use the colors and then mix them. But then you have a darker version of the same thing and the lighter version of the same thing. Now you have the medium shade of burgundy and then you want a darker shade. You need to add a little bit of black to it to go to the darker version of one specific color. And but you have a burgundy, but then you want a lighter shade of burgundy, then you will add more plain buttercream to it to lighten up that shade. Now say you have a bowl of burgundy and you want a really relatively lighter shade of burgundy. Can you use an entire bowl of burgundy buttercream and then add a lot of plain buttercream and then keep mixing? Obviously you will have to consume a lot of plain buttercream into that, and then the entire portion is going to go high, which you don't want to do. So take a little bit of that burgundy, smaller, a spoon of burgundy buttercream, add it into another bowl and then add some more plain buttercream to it and then mix. Then you have a very, very light shade of the burgundy and then a medium shade of burgundy, and then take quite a reasonable amount of that burgundy into another bowl and then add a little bit of black. You can add 1 or 2 drops of black gel, or you can add black buttercream. Maybe you've already made some black buttercream. You add just a little bit of the black buttercream into the medium shade burgundy and then mix, and then you have a darker burgundy. So most of the shades, the darker color comes with the addition of more of that color and then a little bit of black. Say then you have green, and then there are lighter versions of green and then darker versions of green, and then you have say leaf green gel color only. Then you add leaf green, and then for 3 different concentrations of the shade, then you split them into higher concentrations, darker versions of the green. Then you split them into 3 bowls, and into one add some more green and then 1 drop of black and then mix. And then to the darkest, some more green and then 2 drops of black and then mix. And then so you will have 3 different dark shades of green. And then for the lighter shade of green, to the green itself, adding a little bit of yellow will lighten the tone of that green. And some more white will make it even lighter. Now you want some electric green, some blue and yellow. So obviously some people don't even have green. Then also you can still bring green, which is mixing blue and yellow. So obviously you want that. So how to get shades of colors using the basic colors? That also you can Google to see what are the different shades that you can mix up. So it's a knowledge that you can acquire as you're working. Say suppose like say for this green that I've said, for burgundy, and then purples, you're adding the purple and then you're not getting the purple that you want. then a little bit of pink into that purple will actually give you the nice and bright purple that you would want. So you don't even have purple, but can I do purple? Yes, by mixing blue and pink. How did I know that? Obviously Google. So how to get purple shade with basic colors? You Google, it will tell you blue and pink will give you purple. So you can mix that. So the basic thing is you need to know the name of the color, and then darker and then lighter. For darker, yes, black. For lighter, plain buttercream itself. Okay, so any maybe doubts that you have, then you can put it on the Facebook group as you're working, and then if you're not able to figure out even after doing the Google, then I'll just help you out. This is taking whipped cream cake. Whipped cream cake, yes, like I said during the process that I was explaining, whipped cream should be really very stiff. Over stiff is fine, because obviously if it is very dry as you're piping the whipped cream, if it is over dried up and you're piping, you can see it is having a lot of air bubbles, doesn't matter. You can use your palette knife, dip it into water and then smooth out. But if it is watery, if it is not stiff and it is going to be very flowy, then it is difficult. So I said make your own ice tray. Have a tray and then put ice cubes and then place another tray on top of that. So the top of the tray will be dry, but yes, very cold, and then use all your piping bags filled with whipping cream on that. So it is not going to go runny. And then use whipped cream filled in piping bags, very less of quantity filled in your piping bags, because if you have a lot of quantity, you're going to hold it like this and then pipe. Obviously the heat in your hand is going to melt that part of the whipped cream in that piping bag, right? So that you don't want to do. So fill up a little bit and then just use it like a pen. Obviously anything that you touch with a piping bag that is filled with whipped cream, the part you touch will melt. So you only allowed that buffer, that part you don't touch and you're squeezing, right? That is what will be allowed for you to pipe on the cake, and that you want to keep it very stiff. Okay, can we do sides before doing top? Yes, you can completely finish the sides to the color of the background color of your image. Finish it up, do all the sharp edges, and then the top should be a lighter color, because you don't want to have a very dark color and then place the black outline wafer paper on top, and you don't want to just lose the lines. So top plain color is always preferable. Can we practice the same in parchment paper or any other medium and then work on wafer paper? Yes, you can do that. On the board, like I said, you can keep the parchment paper and then work, and try not to waste wafer paper. But I didn't want to do that because I wanted to understand and also show you how long the wafer paper on the buttercream and on the board is going to stay. So I've used wafer paper on the board practice as well, and it is quite good. Any questions? How do we achieve bright red, deep black in buttercream? Roma, Francis, right? I had actually talked about all this when I was working. I'm not sure if you were present at that part of the session. Bright red and deep black, I've already explained. Like, obviously you will go through the entire video one more time, so you should be able to get to that part of the video where I've explained about bright red and black. Okay, the thawed buttercream can be kept in the refrigerator for future use. Yes, the thawed buttercream can go back in an airtight box in the fridge, and then maybe you can take it out and then say scoop out how much ever you want and then put the remaining back, and obviously whatever you scooped and you mix the color can go back into the fridge. Then you can use it after a week or so, or 2 weeks also, doesn't matter, as long as there's only water in it. So practice buttercream, use only water. When you're doing on the cake, you obviously for the quantity of water you can use cream for a richer version, and milk is also fine. Can we use dark chocolate ganache in between and do ABC on top? Yes, the same question was already asked. I'm not sure who asked. You can fill the cake with ganache, and then the top can be ABC, and then you can do the same technique. Roma, my question was, can I make whipped cream finished cake and the buttercream technique on that? The same question is already asked, Roma, I think you missed out that part of the session. I said whipped cream filled cake will be very lighter. The whipped cream is very lighter, right? And then on the top, if you're going to use this technique and add the buttercream is heavy, right? And this will weigh down. This weight will weigh down and maybe the filling will start oozing out on the sides. That you don't want to do. If it is whipped cream filled inside, then you stick to whipped cream only on the top. If it is ganache filling, buttercream on top is fine. This buttercream filling also, buttercream on top is fine. But if it is whipped cream inside, you don't want to use buttercream on top. Obviously, if it is whipped cream inside and using ganache on top also will weigh down the filling. Okay. Fine, no more doubts. So so for the end of the session, you have 2 weeks time, so you cannot delay further, thinking that you will have more time. So after 2 weeks, unfortunately, I will have to look into other things as well. So I will not be able to answer queries or look into the completed work of yours to give suggestions. Also, that is because I want you guys to immediately start working after this live to make use of it. Otherwise, the information will be very volatile. You will tend to forget most of the information. So what I suggest my students, in the long-term course, I suggest students to write down the notes, whatever you heard and whatever is new that you learned today, to write it down in your own hands. Typing is also something that I do not suggest. Write it down in a notebook first and then start your work. That will give you a really, the amount of information that you've stored inside will stay with you for a longer period of time. And it has really worked with all my online long-term students, and I suggest that to you guys as well. So what you learn will stay with you for a longer period of time. So first write down the notes and then start working. You can ask your queries on the Facebook group. You can start your board practice, and if you are comfortable, you are going with the image and you're progressing positively, you can complete and then post. It's not a mandatory thing to show me in between. But say suppose you are not sure and then you are stuck and then you don't know how to continue, and then you can send me the image, the inspiration image again, and the photo of whatever you're working, and the picture of your traced image as well, everything together. So I have everything together in that post, so I can check and then give you a suggestion of how to proceed forward. So only if you are stuck, you can post that with all the things of your previous homework as well, and then I can start suggesting how you can proceed further. So if you have done, and if your first trial itself has come out good, well and good. So if your first trial, you're posting the completed one, and then say if I have suggestion, it's up to you to do it one more time within the 2 weeks period and submit another version where it will look perfect, or if you have understood my suggestions and if you have incorporated them into a second work. That's totally mandatory. I know I wouldn't say, I mean, it's not mandatory, okay? So it's optional. It's up to you. But you're doing once, I highly recommend, because after the 2 weeks, I mean, if you may not do first thing, and then if you're not getting a suggestion or feedback from me, then you will not know if you've done it right or wrong. So, I recommend you to do that. And so anything else, I think we can discuss on the Facebook group. And yes, you have 2 weeks time. Okay, so thank you so much. Any more questions? It's still thick, tough for tracing, please guide. You get the wafer paper, the thin one need to. If you are in India, then Omcraft has it. The thin one, it's good. I recently got from him only. Whatever I've used now is from Omcraft only, and they've come out really well. Okay, thank you so much. Okay, so I am also looking forward to your work. Amazing images that you've chosen. So I'm looking forward to your complete images. So don't stop and take a break. With the same energy that you learned it, start your work, say maybe tomorrow. I'm looking forward to seeing your completed images very soon. Okay, so thank you so much, guys. Bye. Maybe see you guys in maybe in the next session or sometime in the future. Okay, bye.